Is Tuesday, June 17th. I'm your host, R. Dizzle408, with co-host Emil Shah. Welcome to America's Talk Show, the unaffiliated follow-up to Mark Halperin's Two-Way. All right, it looks like the Iran-Israel, right? That's the hot button topic. We had some of our own folk talking to Mark. That was great. Okay, the news I want to share is a little background news. I put the Perplexity link already in the chat. Okay, let's see if we can bring it up here. Give me a second, guys. All right. The question, did Israel supply weapons to Khomeini? Okay, yes, Israel supplied weapons to Iran during the early years of Ayatollah Khomeini's rule, especially through the Iran-Iraq War. Initial contacts and arm deals. After the 1979 Iran Revolution, Iran found itself isolated and in urgent need of military supplies. Despite the regime's ideological opposition to Israel, Iranian officials reached out through back channels. In early 1980, Israel sold Iran military equipment, starting with large numbers of tires for F-4 Phantom fighter jets. It goes on and on, okay? The Perplexity article does not talk about the actual overthrow of the emperor, right, which is also said weapons were supplied to Ayatollah there, $660 million from Jimmy Carter. That is just to set the stage, okay? But the Islamists are no good, right? Shamsul was going to be joined. Okay, good. Shamsul's on here. He has some comments to say. But folks, let's open it up. Let's talk about this, right? Let's carry on the conversation. So who would like to raise their hand first here? Joshua, let me unmute you.
Hey, thanks. So if this is going the way I think it's going, then I think what we're going to start talking about is let's look at all the crazy, shitty things we've done in the past and all the relationships we've entangled ourselves in the past, we, the royal we, whether it's America or whether it's Israel. And we're going to start saying, so you see, we've done that before. We shouldn't do this thing now. But that's, yeah, I got to say that logic doesn't follow.
Joshua, what do you think about, I guess I want to see this Islamism eradicated, right? But and then I'm very curious how Shamsul, what his take is going to be, because by my calculations, Assad was not an Islamist, Gaddafi was not an Islamist, Saddam Hussein was not an Islamist. Prior to the Taliban or the generals in Afghanistan, the monarchies were not Islamists, right? So
right.
Just with Assad not being an Islamist, right? And now there's 8,000 dead Syrians, okay? You know, Al-Qaeda's atop Syria. Mark hasn't brought that up, at least I don't know, one time, right? So I mean, is there something going on in Syria?
What? Clarify. What is there what going on in Syria?
Well, is there something going on in Israel? Like hostages were taken on October 7th, right?
Right.
Okay. So are hostages being taken in Syria?
Oh, by who? By the new Al-Qaeda president?
Yeah, the unelected president.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. What do you mean, like Alawite hostages?
Well, I mean, this is what happens when Islamists come to power. First, there's the, you know, okay, who are the minorities that are oppressing Alawites?
Okay,
what have you?
but usually when Islamists come to power, they don't make any qualms about it, and they don't make any qualms about being Islamists in power. And to my knowledge, the new Al-Qaeda president, Al-Qaizadente of Syria, he seems like he's trying to go a different path. Again, I don't trust him, but you know, we sort of have to wait and see what his actions are. Like, let's see what happens to you know, the Kurds, who were part of, you know, a big powerful sect of that rebellion that overthrew Assad. Right?
Unfortunately, I've seen reports of YPG fighters being women. I guess it's on the Facebook group, so I would encourage people to check that out. That there's some tensions there, and that Jelani, in terms of improving his image or making promises. Sorry, I blanked out. on that.
Yeah, yeah, but that's his name. Yeah, Giovanni. That's his name. Al Qaeda president. Yeah. Um, to your point, I think I think the intervention that we did in Libya was ridiculous. The infamous we came, we saw, he's dead intervention in Libya. That was ridiculous. Absolutely a catastrophe. From the American consulate debacle to to that quote, and now Libya is an absolute shit show full of full of Islamists, where it probably wasn't before. But so we shouldn't have intervened. Gaddafi was a bad dude, but Gaddafi wasn't an Islamist, and I think that's the real problem, because Gaddafi might have had powerful uh, 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 thoughts and goals within Libya, and maybe even sort of bordering into Tunisia, but Islamists, as political Islam doesn't want to stop. It doesn't acknowledge borders. That's why Iraq and Iran primarily are so different. Iran is the theocracy overlay of Iran is a global concept. It's not just contained. They're not satisfied with ruling in Iran. It's not contained, and it's in Malaysia, right? It's in it's an ideology that look, you can go back to the 1960s, right? What did Frank Herbert, here getting sci-fi, right? What did Frank Herbert model the Fremen on, right? He modeled the Fremen on Islamists who were back in the 60s, right? And what happened? A galactic jihad, right? I mean, look, point made.
Yes, and I'm going to the enemy of the enemy is my friend, and I believe the Muslim Brotherhood came out in droves against Assad, right? That's what I want to unpack down the road. Claudio, with your hand up from Italy.
I agree with Joshua said. At the same time, I think that what we should give to the Shia regime is not destruction but humiliation, because the Islamic regimes have all the mania to be martyrs, and the problem is that when you build a lot of martyrs, they will continue for a lot of generation. That's my only fear. I think that Daryl on that is right. What he needs is a diplomatic humiliation. He doesn't need a military humiliation, because the military humiliation will give him the justification. See, we sacrifice for the country. We sacrifice for the welfare of the Muslim Iranian. That doesn't exist. It is just the Shia Iranians. The Muslim Iranians probably will prefer to live like in the Shah period. But regarding that, my issue it is that is different from Iraq, as Joshua said. One reason is because the Ba'ath was a social democratic pan-Arabic plan to create a third world kind of defending thing, something that in UN still break and ruptures when he wants to be pro-Russia or pro-whatever China or what other thing, and go also against India or other third world countries that wants to have democracy rather than autocracy. And at the same time, regarding the example that was doing on Dune, I think the problem is that yes, they are shaped on the Islamists, but we take the risk to create an Iraqis guy that he will empower. He will empower more another Shia regime rather than someone that will shut up it. That's my fear. So I think he deserves more diplomatic humiliation than Ayatollah than a military destruction, because he will create a justification for future Ayatollahs to be martyrs in Iran. That's it.
Thank you, Claudio. Jen from Oklahoma.
I think America, despite its, always less than stellar past and decisions we've made, etc., I think we as a nation have severe challenges even understanding European ethnic and national disputes. We're just kind of have an attitude of, why can't we all get along kind of thing. I just don't think we have a clue when it comes to understanding and negotiating all the tribal differences in the Middle East. And I think we're better off letting things happen organically on their own in the Middle East in terms of who gets to rule Syria, etc. And even if it comes to it, if there's regime change in Iran, I just think we need to take a hands-off policy. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Shamsul from Malaysia. Welcome.
Hi. Hi. Hold on. Let me unmute. Okay, I'm unmuted. All right. I get the point of what Jen just said, but I would say this in counter. The problem with what the US has had is actually for quite a long time, the politicians that's been leading America has been very much beholden to, let's call it either the military-industrial complex or some other deep state kind of influences, and that makes them actually, instead of looking at the problems that they had to face correctly, they are looking at it from the interests of those who actually put them in power. That politically, that's the problem. Second, I want to say, I'm very surprised that Josh gets it about Islamism. I'm actually wondering how he gets to that understanding. Maybe his tour in Iraq showed him something. Sorry,
Go ahead.
Jen,
Go ahead.
you want
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. And then for Daryl, I have to disagree with Daryl on how he has been looking at it. But yeah, that's his opinion. But here's what I want to say with respect to Islamism. A lot of American and Westerners does not understand what Islamism is all about. It has no borders. Okay, Islamism is political Islam where its whole objective is to subjugate the rest of the world. All right? And if you look at who is the biggest enemy of it to subjugate, the number one is the US, because the British has lost. Okay? Well, they are practically actually trying to conquer the UK right now. Second, it's definitely Israel and the equal enemy, the Jews. I'm being honest. All right? So if you understand this part about Islamism, you will realize that it is not like an ideology such as communism, socialism, or anything like that. It doesn't equate. Islamism doesn't equate with being Muslim. It's two different set of thinking. What you have in Iran is now a theocratic Islamist regime that has nuclear ambition, that has money, oil money, that it can fund all its proxies. Now, however the whole action started, when I saw it, because I, for one, never like to see US in forever wars. But when I saw what happened in Iran, all I could say is this is the best opportunity to actually end an Islamist regime that has that kind of objective in mind. Now, the only problem I see, and it is a challenge, is that how do you end up with a regime change that will end up with a reasonably peaceful, secular, and modern nation? And I think of all the societies that I sort of know in the Middle East, the Iranians are pretty steep in their civilization that goes way beyond Islam. So I'm pretty more positive about Iran than anywhere else, actually. So
Shamsul,
that's my
what is your take though on Assad? Because Assad, he was not forcing women to. I mean, Assad, under Assad specifically, I know surrounding him there it might be different, but he was not an Islamist, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from as much as I understood, he was not an Islamist, right? He's a dictator, right?
Well,
So,
I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say that he. I mean, given the choices were Al Qaeda.
well, I mean, there it goes to the point of what I'm trying to make, which is some of the decisions that was made before, which is trying to do regime change on dictatorships, right? May not have been right, because I mean, so I'm not trying to say that I'm not going to say that that everything is consistent. So what's happening in Iran is the same thing of what was done in Syria or what was done in Libya, with Gaddafi. It's not. Unfortunately, it's not. It's the wrong lessons to take, and that's why I started the discussion with the point that what the previous politician has done does not necessarily reflect to what is happening right now with respect to Iran. You go to Iraq, for example, okay? If they had if really we wanted to do, or America wanted to do something about Iraq, it should have been done during the Kuwait War. Don't just stop at halfway and then come and take over Kuwait. Go all the way. They would have done the job.
Let's bring in our queue here. I think Daryl has his hands full, or maybe.
I can talk as long as you guys don't mind a baby being fussy.
Hey, look at that baby.
Yeah. Well, first I want to just say I deserve royalty. Me and Haley deserve royalties for promoting the show this morning. And we got Sean Spicer even to promote it, basically.
Daryl deserves extra for that Daryl attack dimple.
Yeah, that's true. Weapon of mass attraction. Joshua, you did all right, even though everything you said was wrong. But
I love you.
Yeah, I love you too. No, see, listen. I just feel like everyone has just gone through a time warp, and we're back to 2003. I know nobody wants to hear about history, but I don't know how else to look at this situation without looking at what we've done in the past. Like, just this idea that, if we just take out the Iranian regime, everything's going to be all rosy and wonderful, and all these problems, Islamism all over the world's not going to get supercharged by that. It's all these problems are going to go away. You guys are you're living in a dream world. You're living in a dream world, and all the anti-Iranian propaganda that's been blasted in your brain for the last 30 years has just been activated, and you're all playing it out. It's the same thing. Iraq had nuclear weapons too. Remember? That's why we went in there. And we're going to go in there and it's going to create a wave of democracy across the Middle East. And it's going to be a utopia. I mean, get out of here. You guys are living in a dream world. The best thing that we can get out of attacking Iran or Israel is a civil war where millions of people are going to die. Is that what we all want? Millions of more people in the Middle East to die?
Thank you for that, Daryl. ML?
Thanks. Great job, Daryl, Haley, and Josh. Love to see you guys, you legends, on the show. I definitely disagree with Daryl. And I would say, you know, you may not agree with Trump right now, or you may be very upset with where things are heading. But I'll tell you what, in 6 months, you'll probably change your mind, if you supported him at all. And I say that because many times Trump has been underestimated. I remember people are panicking, like for no reason about World War III when we bombed and when we killed Soleimani, whatever. We were World War III. I mean, it's just off the charts. And the other thing too is like this is not anything like Iraq or Afghanistan at all. Whatever. History does not repeat itself. That's not how history works. The other thing is, can we? The biggest question is of all these things, because we're already involved, whether we want it, whether it's to Daryl's liking or to Haley's liking or to somewhere in between, we're already involved. I care about having an exit state from all of this. And as far as millions of people dying, I don't really care. Iran made the choice decade after decade after decade when they had a deal on the table, and they still, with Obama, it wasn't good enough for them then. It'll never be good enough. These people will never be peaceful. They'll never honor their word, period. Whether it's a dictator or an Assad or it's a Al Qaeda Syria or whatever, these people are crazy. Like, I wish we could just let hands off. But you know, when you fund a whole bunch of people and you have offshoots of Hezbollah and Hamas and you start messing around with other people's stuff, guess what? Guess what happens? Iran invited Israel, the United States, and every other country who wants to get on board to mess with their affairs because they wouldn't leave Israel alone. That started a long time ago. It's not my problem if millions of the. I hope they don't. I hope they don't. And I don't think that they will be a civil war. I think that there is a yearning on the population of Iran. Nobody will know how it goes. I agree. It'll kick things off and it'll take things to a place where it'll be very, very uncontrollable. But if you think that there'll be boots on the ground for any of this stuff. Outside of like maybe one or two special operations, whatever the hell we need for our people to get in there and do their thing, the 82nd Airborne isn't going to mobilize, and we're not going to be dropping in to liberate.
Can I just jump in on that point
Iran.
you just made? Like
Sure.
we have thousands of American personnel stationed all around Iran. The moment that we attack Iran in a serious way, they're going to launch all those ballistic missiles they have. And they have way more short-range ones than the long-range ones that can reach Israel. So you want to see all those images of Tel
They're going to
Aviv,
do
all
it
the
anyway.
missiles raining down? That's what's going to happen on our military bases.
Number one, if they were going to do it, they already would have done it. I think that their combat capacity and their combat anything has been severely degraded. No, I'm not saying that that they're not dangerous. Absolutely, they're a danger. There's no such thing as a cakewalk when it comes to military or any of this stuff.
But don't say there aren't going to be any troops involved, because that they will be.
There
involved.
won't be. Not no. You were trying to make it like if we go after Iran, it's going to be like Iraq or Afghanistan, and we're going to have boots on the ground. That's not true whatsoever.
I didn't say we're going to invade.
Well, you alluded to it.
Our troops all stationed all around Iran are going to suffer.
All right, fair enough.
All right, guys, we're about to get back to the queue. I just want to welcome some of our new folks. Frank, really glad to see you here. We just like to give new folks a chance to share, or you can hang back and listen. How you doing this morning, Frank?
I'm doing fine. Every day's fine so far. So far, so good. Anyway, so this is this first time on this platform, and anyway, I'm worried about all the refugees, flooding into Europe and of course Great Britain and that sort of thing, and all the headlines, news articles I see on X and other places about all the disruption there. So anyway, it seems like there's a big problem. And I'm also concerned about the situation regarding freedom of speech in places like United Kingdom and Germany and things like that, where you cannot offend a politician without possibility of a jail sentence. Okay. However, in Iran, Does anyone have any information regarding the size and structure of the government and all these, I guess you call them Islamists, who are in the streets waving flags and chanting death to America? Because all of these people would have to be somehow, I don't know, suppressed before you have a Republican form of government or a Democratic form of government or liberal form of government established. I understand that the majority of the Iranian people, are possibly opposed to this government that they have now. But what difference does that make? Because they don't have any force of arms. They can't do much about it. There's no real elections, etc., etc. So what is the plan if you want regime change there to somehow deal with all this mess? Anyway, so this is my comment on regime change there. And if you don't change the regime, boy, are they annoyed. And what mischief are they going to do? Now, Israel has been bombing their oil facilities to prevent, oil revenue. And, wow, what a mess this thing is. Anyway, that's my question, and that's my comment.
Great questions, great comments, Frank. Thank you for joining us this morning. Claudio from Italy has some answers, I believe, or opinions.
Yeah, the thing is that the Islamic regime in reality is divided in factions. There is the more extremist, closer to Khamenei, the more moderate that pushed out the president that was before, and they bring Pezeshkian instead of him, and then there is a middle way ground. The thing is that the moderate part, that is also closer to the so-called Green Movement in Iran, it's available to have not a regime change, but at least a less interference from the Ayatollahs and the Mullahs on the, for example, political vetting. Because the thing, Frank, is that there is this shadow government made by the Ayatollah that checks the parliamentarians and all the people that are going to be elected. If they are not okay Ayatollah, we will not be never elected, because it's not a decision by the people, it's a decision by the wise men of the Ayatollah to decide who runs for government or who doesn't run, from the local to the federal level. At the same time, the other thing is that it doesn't control all the population, but we can say it controls the so-called 10% of the population, all the elite that is connected with Islamic schools, with the things that are okay to govern. Because if you have that 10%, you have also the rest of the 90%. And I can tell you there has been a problem on the regime, for example, when it was President Ahmadinejad, because it was considered too extremist, also on behalf of the Ayatollah, paradoxically. And what is happening is that they tried in every way to move him out for some reason. They also invented, for example, that was half Israeli, to let him out from the government, for example. In fact, there was the proof that was half Jewish, but from an Arab Jewish. It wasn't Jewish as a man with a kippah. And in my conclusion, I can tell you that I think that is possible to do rather than a regime change would be to let the moderate side of the Ayatollahs to govern, to let the Ayatollah have less interference on government, and then have a gradation. So my problem is that we will not have a regime change if we're gonna bomb the bunker of the Ayatollah, because it will be a reason to let the moderate and the middle way coalition in that faction to be moved out and substituted by all the conservative guys, and then will be much more difficult to have a regime change. Let's be honest.
What's up, Jacob?
Professor Kenny hasn't spoken yet. Wanted to welcome you back, Professor Kenny.
Yeah, hey, how's it going? This whole thing. The Iranians for 50 years have been supporting their proxies to do everything they can to upset Israel, upset the United States. Okay? They support Hamas, they finance Hamas, they support and finance Hezbollah, okay? The Houthis in Yemen, they support them. I mean, what is Israel supposed to do? Okay, there is going to be no diplomatic solution unless you bomb the hell out of them into a diplomatic solution or you get a regime change. Okay, and where Trump's mistake is in terms of strategy, because he's trying to figure this out now. He's in over his head. Is you need to give them the bunker busters first, and then you go to say, well, it's time to negotiate. You don't. It can never. When you handle things by being reactive, like, well, we offered you a deal and you didn't do it, so now we're going to bomb the hell out of you. No, no, no. We're ready to bomb the hell out of you, but we want to make a deal. That's the kind of negotiation that needs to happen. But this idea, yeah, and by the way, Tucker Carlson is an asshole. Okay, and people that listen to me, he's a Putin shill, and he gets money from Putin and the Russian government. Okay, because he's an indie. And that's where he gets money from. So this whole idea, oh, well, let's listen to Tucker. Tucker's a friggin' moron, okay? And you don't know what you're talking about, okay? So this is something that has to be done. Enough is enough. But as Frank brought up, what is the answer? I don't think they want regime changes as much. I mean, I think we want regime change, but I don't think that's the practical thing. I think the practical thing is just to bomb them into a deal, and we'll see where this goes.
Thank you, Professor Kenny. Joshua?
Hey, thanks. I'm going to cook for a second. So I'm going to address Shamsul first, and then I want to address Frank. Shamsul, I was born in the 80s, consciously grew up in the 90s, remember the Gulf War, remember Rwanda, remember Bosnia, remember Kosovo, remember the foreign engagements and political philosophy of the Clinton administration. Served in the Marines as a machine gunner from 2005 to 2010. Did 2 tours in Iraq with 1st Battalion, 2nd Marines, Al Anbar province, and north of the Sinjar Mountains.
Hoorah!
Yeah. Then went back to school. So back to college after that, University of North Carolina, Wilmington. And at this point, we're talking 2010, 2011. So we're talking Arab Spring, Syrian Civil War time frame. And I called it, I called it on C-SPAN once. I called into C-SPAN. So C-SPAN's Washington Journal, which morning meeting reminds me of Washington Journal a lot. But I called in, I was like, the Syrian Civil War, nobody's talking about this right now, but here's to your point, Frank, the refugee crisis that's going to happen is going to be a catastrophe. And it was. And that's when you saw the spread of Islamism, political Islam, from the refugees of Syria going into Germany, going into the UK, and bringing their political Islam with them, forming no-go zones. Like, that's when you first started hearing about that stuff in Europe, the no-go zones, the Islamic neighborhoods, the Islamic ghettos in Europe. So that sort of, and look, when the Arab Spring was going on, I was constantly doing battle with international relations professors and things like that. To Frank's point about, how strong is that Islamic overlay? How strong is the regime in Iran? I think there's about 150,000, I think maybe 150,000 hardcore IRGC members. Officer Corps is definitely more loyal to the regime than the enlisted corps, which is usually the case, no matter where you go. I think, and I think that's probably the makeup of most of the time when you see the chants "Death to America, Death to Israel." That's mostly IRGC members who are doing that, as opposed to
civilian clothes.
Well, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. for sure. Yeah, the IRGC and the Ayatollahs, the Quds Force and the Ayatollahs, call them secret police, if you will. I know there's a Farsi word for that. But yeah, look, I don't think they're a paper tiger, but I don't think they're as strong and robust as a lot of people are worried about right now, or are concerned about. From a regime change perspective, man, the other big difference, as this conversation's been ongoing, another big difference to keep in mind between W. Bush era foreign policy and what we're considering now is it's not regime change. It was spreading democracy. Big difference. Big difference if you don't pay attention. Okay. We wanted to spread democracy during the war on terror. Okay. We thought we could go in, topple Saddam Hussein, and set up, this robust democracy for a people, a culture that is literally, to a large extent, still nomadic and tribal. Same thing goes in Afghanistan to a certain extent as well. Okay. And now we see, after we left, what happened. The Taliban just came right back in. Okay. But what happened when we had gone away from Iraq and we just had some troops at Al-Assad Air Base, what happened? ISIS ran through. So it's dictators in the Middle East, dictators, or as we'd call them, Arab republics, right? Where there's a strongman president elected. That's not the worry. They're typically content, whether you want to say it's Saddam Hussein, whether you want to say it's Gaddafi, whether you want to say it's former Egyptian strongman Hosni Mubarak, right? They typically are fine to be ruler of their little country. But the Islamists are the ones who want to overlay Sharia. They're the real threat. Muslim Brotherhood in Tunisia, when the Arab Spring kicked off, right? I'm very glad Al-Sisi stepped up to the plate in Egypt. Al-Sisi isn't what we in the West would call a quote unquote a good person, but my God, he's better than an Islamic regime in Egypt.
Actually, the only critique I heard of Obama was the guy that kicked that off to get to the movement that got Al-Sisi to kick out the Muslim Brotherhood. That was the only time during the Obama administration I heard some international, this guy in Egypt said, F off Obama, and they got rid of Morsi, the Muslim Brotherhood candidate. Let me bring in...
I answer a second. That have been their most idiot take, because even Muslim people were more favorable of Al-Sisi than Morsi, because Morsi is more closer to Al-Banna kind of Muslim Brotherhood ideology than the Said al-Qutb one. Let's be honest. Even my friend that was in the Tahrir at the period, it was happy that the generals went back, because they put back the real Islam, not the bullshit, put the veil, shut up, don't drive, and other kick-ass bullshit.
Shamsul?
Yeah, hi. I must say I'm extremely impressed with Josh. His understanding of all the backdrops is extremely impressive, dude. And this is something that actually I think I wanted to say this. I think for the first, I'm 60. I just turned 61 2 weeks ago, right? So I've been doing business internationally for the last probably 35 plus years. I've traveled a lot, and I've seen I do business in Southeast Asia. I do in Saudi, and I'm quite intimately I keep close contacts with American politics and culture since I went to school in Gainesville. I would say this about Trump. It's the first time I've ever seen an American president that actually truly understands the international landscape. That's number one. Not to mention, actually, I believe, I mean, from a businessman standpoint, I think he understands mainstream business because he comes from a blue-collar business background. But put that aside, as far as this international scenario is concerned, I think he's different. I think he sees Iran for what it is, and I see him taking this and handling it the way it should be. I'm actually more curious to see how the whole regime change is going to happen, if it's going to happen, because I do think it needs to happen. And to the point for Daryl, I think you should be really thankful that you got Trump as the president who's handling the problem that you're facing today. I don't think anybody else would have had the grasp of actually tackling the issue that is that has come up with this current situation, both in Ukraine and also in the Middle East. That's what I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Shamsul. Wesley?
Yeah, I'm just listening, and I listened to Daryl when he was talking in the two-way meeting, and I just kind of want to dialogue a little bit back and forth here. You made a comment with respect to Iran feeling as if their existence is being threatened by Israel. And did you have reference to that just with what is going on right now with Israel attacking them? Or is this a general belief that you have that Israel has colonial aspirations or something like this?
Well, I don't know if they have colonial. Oh, to a certain degree, not to Iran, to Greater Israel. Read about that. The Greater Israel Project. Yeah, so they do have colonial expansion plans, but it has nothing to do really directly with Iran. Iran feels threatened by a U.S.-Israeli axis. Okay, all you have to do is open up the history books and look at. We've been basically at war with Iran since 1979, in a state of conflict with them in one way or another. We helped Iraq I encourage everybody just sometime today, look up the history of the Iran-Iraq war, because Iraq invaded Iran for all the reasons that we're talking about today. He wanted to stop the revolution. He got to take out the mullahs. He thought it was going to be a cakewalk. They're just going to go in there. We helped Iraq. We helped Iraq kill hundreds of thousands, potentially over 1 million Iranians.
So I share.
No wonder they think we're an enemy.
So I share a lot of your concerns about nation building and about intervention. I don't think we understand the complexities of Islamic politics. I actually would push you a little bit and say that you don't understand the complexities of what Israel is dealing with either. I want to ask you, have you seen images of what Iran looked like before the Islamic Revolution of 1979?
Yes, and all of you can go on YouTube and type in videos in Iran, and you can see it looks great. A lot of places look amazing. I'd love to visit if I could. It wasn't such a dangerous time.
So Iran is one of the least safe places for a female to be today. They're subjugated. There's burqa laws. There's forced marriages. They can't get inheritances. Only 19% of the workforce in Iran are females. What I'm saying is they are a nation that is having Islamic thought imposed on them from the top. Okay, about 40% of Iranians are secularized. They just want to.
Can I just comment on just that right there? Hold on. Yeah, when I hope all of you do go on YouTube and start typing in videos, just walking videos in Iran. Okay, you're gonna see tons of women with their hair showing. I've watched them myself.
Well, there's been a
conservative society,
but you won't see it today. You don't see that today, and there's a reason for that. They're not allowed to do these things. They don't have those freedoms anymore.
No, this is today. No, YouTube videos today. People just doing walking tours around Tehran. You can watch them. I've seen them myself. Women are not now. Some women are covered. But lots of women are just walking around with a scarf around their neck and their hair is showing, and they're just
Daryl, what do
walking
you
around
think
enjoying,
about?
having a good time.
I've mentioned though the Jimmy Carter, the 660 million to Khomeini, and the weapons supplied via Israel. Any comment on that?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
So Daryl, the claim is that Jimmy Carter wrote 4 checks of $165 million each to Khomeini. Khomeini was essentially shipped in. For me, this is just history, the pattern, right? The way that Lenin was shipped into the USSR, because he was exiled to Germany. Khomeini had been exiled to France, okay? And he was brought in by, again, Carter, Zbigniew Brzezinski, $660 million, right? To turn a society backwards, and the weapons supplied by Israel.
Yeah, this is a mess of our own making. But yeah, go ahead.
I'll go back to what I
can I
hold on one second.
Can
I'll
I
go back
jump
to what I
into-
said.
Wait,
what I said
let Wesley go.
before.
Let Wesley go.
And that is, like, I'm in a denomination here, I'm Presbyterian, and we're sending missionaries secretly to Iran within our presbytery here, in order to try to plant churches, to disciple people, to witness the gospel, things like this. And they cannot do this openly, right? You can worship at a mosque openly in Israel. It is not right to take the two nations, Israel and Iran, and to consider them equivalents, as if the same freedoms are available in both nations. It's just not true. I may be misinformed about women being able to walk freely in the streets of Tehran without a head covering. And I'll follow up and look. But I will say that all of the, like, if I go in and do my research here, I know that women do not have inheritance rights there. I do know that 19% of the workforce are female in Iran, and they don't have equal opportunity. And I think so. Whenever you talk about these two nations, there's not moral equivalence there. One's a democracy, a westernized democracy. The other one is not. Right.
Yeah, I'm going to bring in Shamsul, but just to back up, Hammurabi, I don't know if they're still teaching it in school, but Hammurabi, Book of Law, it's from Iraq, okay? And the Arabs, it's not from Persia, but the Persians and the Arabs, and in the Shahnameh, in the Persian Epic of Kings, we see the hate for the Arabs, the serpent race, but guess what? The prince falls in love with the Arab princess, okay? So there's an intermixing there. It's all in the Bible. We just got to brush it up. Shamsul.
Raul, hold on, Raul. Hammurabi was Akkadian in Mesopotamia, in the late Bronze Age, early Iron Age.
Yes.
Islam was founded in like 500 AD.
Right, but the tracing of Islam, Quran 37:84, Abraham went to his Lord. Who was Lord of Abraham? Genesis.
Well, Abraham came from Ur.
Correct.
Abraham was a Sumerian.
Correct. Okay, but he was a disciple of Melchizedek. Okay, this is in the book of Genesis. It's very clear.
Yeah, the most the most interesting man in the Old Testament.
Shem is the universal father of all these people, right? So, like, this is what's getting buried. I think Shamsul got buried in there too. Shamsul, you had something to say, please.
Yeah. I'd like to jump in between Daryl and Wesley. I hope, between their two conversation, because I think Daryl, you don't quite understand exactly what is happening in Iran with respect to Islam and how it's practiced over there. The thing is, you can see because the way they wear the head covering is different than hijabs in other places. That's a different in culture, but they still have to wear. It is much more relaxed to a certain extent, unless the religious police come after you, and the religious police will come after you if they want to. I mean, there was just, I think about a year ago, there was the big case where a lady went missing because she made a protest on not wearing head covering. So you can wear in Iran a head covering that shows some of your hair. That's fine in Iran. Okay, but they do still have religious police that will impose the religious requirements of hijab and the way they see things. Okay, so what you think you see is not exactly what you think.
Can I just jump in and say, who cares? Like, why are we even talking about
No,
this? Is this a justification to attack Iran? I mean,
right,
get out of here.
Daryl,
No.
brother. May I say this? I agree with you on that part. I brought that subject up because you brought it up. Okay?
No, someone else brought it up. And
I brought
retort,
it up,
but
and I did it
Okay.
to
So
that when we're not they're not moral equivalent.
Right. But
we're not the
tell
world's
you
moral
what,
police.
but I'll tell you what is the one that you should care about. What you should care about is Islamism. And that's what Josh was talking about. All right.
Okay.
When
Can I comment on that?
Go
Okay.
ahead.
So you guys were talking about the refugees in Europe in this Islamization.
I'm not talking about the refugees. I'm not talking about the refugees.
Okay, Daryl, just 1 minute, and then let's get back to the queue.
Yeah. Can I just get one thing quickly? Daryl, I'm not talking about the refugees. I'm talking about an Islamist theocratic regime that is funding with oil money all their proxies that is attacking the secular world. All right, and that includes and that includes for them the biggest Satan is the U.S. The next one is Israel and the Jews. So either you let it be and you handle it later, or you have a situation like currently what we have, which is whether we like it or not, Israel has taken an action, and you've got a situation where you say, hey, you can actually solve this problem of a regime that is funding havoc around the world, which includes America. So that's what I'm getting at.
Okay, guys, we just have to hang tight and get back to the queue here. Professor Kenny?
Yeah, Raul, I'm going to push back on you with this bullshit Jimmy Carter put Khomeini in power argument. That's totally ridiculous. What Jimmy Carter was doing was he was talking to the Khomeini people because they knew they were losing, that the Shah was losing his power, and that they wanted to we wanted to make sure that our oil interests were still protected there. So the idea that we put Khomeini in power is utterly ridiculous. We didn't want to put boots on the ground in there and do that kind of stuff. So that's why, we let it fall where it fell, but we had diplomatic relations on the side just to protect our oil interests. As far as, and if you want to respond to that, you can.
Well, my understanding is Pahlavi had diplomatic relations with Israel. Things were fine between Israel and Iran at the time. The oil was flowing. Women could show their hair fine. So I do not see that there was a popular uprising. The students, this is another thread that goes back to the Bolsheviks, right? There's a book, Anti-Human, about how the Bolsheviks oppressed the Romanians, okay? And the students are the naive, thinking with their hearts, not with their heads. And so they get caught up in, we're going to bring democracy, why do you need an emperor? And then the media follows that. So again, the Parsis, and then if we want to talk about right of return, and Palestinians and land right, well, the Parsis, no one ever talks about the Parsis, the original Persians of India. And guys, again, the culture, it's very it's simple. It's a Zen sort of culture, right? It's not a top-down thing. It's, again, the three wise men who blessed baby Jesus, okay? That culture is there for everyone to access. But Professor Kenny, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, so this idea, I'm just like, I'm really baffled by, Daryl frustrates me more than anybody, and I love the kid, but he's really killing me with with this whole idea. You know, Josh brought up a great thing on the two-way today. He said, you know, how we conflate America first with all America only or something to that effect is what Josh was saying, right, Josh? Like instead of America first, they misunderstand what America first means. It's like, you know, and listen, when you are the world's biggest superpower, you have to accept that responsibility throughout the world. The idea that we can just sit back and do nothing is ridiculous. Plus, we put Israel into power. We were with Ben Gurion when they started in 48. What do you think? You know, Israel and us, we're never going to break that relationship ever. Okay, so yes, as Mike says, we are already involved. Once you screw with Israel, you're screwing with us. And that's just the way it is. And Biden and Obama keep giving back the money to Iran. Listen, you didn't have these major terrorist attacks going on when we were withholding all of their money. But once you give them back their money, then they can finance Hezbollah and Hamas and Houthis and get all of the, you know, and get their crap going again. It's just, you know, it's got to stop.
Thank you for that, Professor Kenny. And yes, there's another thing about back to 1979, the MEK MKO cult, the precursor to ISIS, okay, started back then. There's a very heartbreaking documentary, unfinished documentary from my daughter Somaye about how this cult still exists in Iraq. And then there was U.S. military there telling the father, we're sorry, your daughter's made a decision, blah, blah, blah. And this is another one of those deep state chess pieces, MEK, MKO cult. How can we move them around? And it's just like, let's stop funding Islamists in any way, shape, or form possible. Andre, with your hand up.
Yeah, guys. 2 points. One, very much on the page, and I had a conversation with Daryl yesterday about the fact that, you know, you look at United States reports dating back to 1984 when we named Iran a state sponsor of terror for the first time. There's only 4 countries that we do that. Unfortunately, we're chicken shit about calling out Putin as a state sponsor of terror. But as far as Iran, we have terror reports on that country dating back over 2 decades. We also have human rights reports on that country dating back to 2 decades. But let's focus on the terror aspect of it. The fact that they destabilize Yemen, they destabilize Lebanon, they destabilize Pakistan, they destabilize almost every country on their periphery, including Iraq, including Syria specifically. So net benefits of having a change of regime. And I agree with Wesley here specifically about the fact that Israel is trying to change the regime. That's their wish. They don't want to destroy the Iranian people. Iran wants to wipe off every single resident of Israel. Period, full stop. The leadership of Iran. The other thing I just had to pipe up because as a New Yorker, I don't know the Shamsul's perspective on President Trump as being a blue collar person. This is a man who has never been blue collar in his life. He has that affectation of an accent, but he has ruined blue collar businesses his entire life by stiffing regular contractors left and right. He doesn't have a particular affinity for them. He likes to play act that he can talk with them, but there's nothing in his background biography wise that shows that this is a person who's done a day of work in his life. So when you say that, I just have to pipe up and say that's just not a thing. The other thing is to say that this is a person who is acting in the best way, who's figured out the diplomatic game. There's no major diplomatic accomplishments dating back to his first term that we can point to. There's going to be a couple that people can pipe up about. They can say USMC. What about the renegotiation of the trade deal? That has been effectively negated by this administration. He worked for over 2.5 years, not him. His people worked for 2.5 years to renegotiate NAFTA. That was done, and that's effectively been scrapped because of his participation. The other thing people can talk to is Abraham Accords, which I fully support. None of the people who were involved in Abraham Accords in the first administration are part of this administration. That's just a fact. So saying that there's any continuation of that, he outsourced that negotiation to Jared Kushner and Jared's team, including Mike Pompeo's people, including other State Department people. All those people are gone, and not to mention that we're on the precipice of a major war, and we just relieved half of the NSA 2 weeks ago. We're kicking out 700 people out of the State Department and half of the NSA, and that's how we're going into this war. So I just want to bear that in mind when we say that we're going in with a full deck. We're going in with not quite a full deck.
Appreciate that, Andre. Claudio?
Thank you. Now, what I say is that, in my opinion, in reality, what it was the maximum pressure, and Iran has been kept as maximum pressure. I think most of the stuff of the dealing of diplomacy is because of the softer earth that Mr. Witkoff has. To be honest, I don't like that guy, and at the same time, I'm sorry that Mike Pompeo has been kicked out just because it's a hawk, a pro-war, or whatever. Because he could have been more pragmatic then. But I'm happy that there is Rubio at least as a State Department, let's be honest. And another issue for me is that when he said they think that I give you 60 days and the 61st I will not be sure about what I will be do, I've been happy that has been coherent to that rather than chicken out for some times, because Bibi didn't chicken out. And in general, in my opinion, is we are involved in a when we say logistical intelligence, whatever, we are already involved. And paradoxically, also Europe is being involved because intercept missiles and destroys them. And the issue with that is that they don't like involvement when it's not convenient for them, because Iran cannot say, hey, look, you see, US and Europe are involved. Yes, to shut down your missiles, not to shut down you, asshole, we can say. My only problem is what Wesley said, that we are ignoring the complexity of what will happen after. But at this point, if we are scared of that fear, the only thing that Trump can say is to say to Netanyahu, hey, look, let the Ayatollah flee away on Russia with all its second in command, and let's make possible that they will not come back in Iran again, different from Khomeini. There is not any other issue that can be done on the side of Trump. Rather than saying, hey, let's ask the United Nations to let us bomb Fordo. The United Nations will say no. Russia and China will give the veto, so let's Israel do that, and let US give the possibility to Ayatollah to exile with all its seconds and don't come back in Iran anymore. With all the 10% of the people and the physician if they want.
Thank you, Claudio. Joshua?
I'm just going to throw out some advice that I've given to my 21-year-old daughter. There's a lot about life. In fact, the majority of life, the majority of things that happen to you, you have no control over. But some things that you do have control over. And it's better to exercise control over those things than to let those things go and let chaos take over, or anarchy, or chance. Okay? Don't worry so much about the things you can't control. Worry about the things you can control. One of the things that
we have to worry about everything. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I'm unmuted.
You're correct. No, you're correct.
That's a great YouTube moment, Frank. We love that.
Yeah, we can't worry about everything, but we should worry about the things that we can control. And it's in America's interest to try to maximize the things that we can control so that we can reduce the margin of error in the variables in a way that negatively affects, or in a way that could negatively affect the United States. That's America first, right? That's America first, okay? We don't need to control things and tweak the international norms or international rules or whatever, the things that we can control internationally. We don't need to tweak those variables to benefit Saudi Arabia or Iran or Israel or Russia or Germany or Great Britain. We need to tweak those things to benefit the United States. That is America first. Tweaking this variable in a way that we can, in a way that benefits the United States is America first.
I want to say something. Can I say something?
Please, Frank.
Yes, Frank physically rose his hand. He rose his physical hand.
Well, I can't. The button doesn't work because I'm unmuted. So that's why I made that comment. And anyway, I'm not sure why the button doesn't work. All right. So listen, I'm running out of time here. But regarding this regime change business, all right. So the plan, haven't heard one, but okay, 150,000 forces loyal to Khomeini in Iran, of which the officer corps, possibly 25,000, I don't know, 30,000 are sort of hardcore. That's 30,000 hardcore plus, the people who are going to follow him. That's still a significant force. So the plan, how do you change that? There's moderates and all kinds of things. And by the way, Claudio, I'd like you to write up what you said and put it somewhere so I can read it. I love you, but I understand about 50% of what you're saying, and I'm missing the important parts. Okay, so, and you too, Joshua, I'd like you to write that up too, because I'd like this information. Okay, but anyway, so what can you do? Well, first of all, you have to tell the Iranian people and the parties that what your objective is, and the objective is to get no nuclear force or no nuclear capability or offensive anyway, and this imperialism, this is what you're calling Islamist, stuff, is disruptive. We want it to stop. Okay, those are the two objectives, I think, and then maybe you have to create some pain, which is what Israel was doing by bombing their source of revenue, their various facilities, and then just sort of see what happens. But I don't know. I don't see any plan, to do any of this. Well, no, I'm sorry. I don't see it. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And Israel's probably doing that plan, but I don't know it. We don't know anything, actually. We don't get the news, and it's just outrageous how we're just so ignorant and talking about stuff we have no real knowledge of. Anyway, that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Daryl, closing us out?
Yeah, Frank, thanks so much for being here. I think you raised some great points that need to be considered. To answer your sort of rhetorical question, there is no plan. Okay, they can say there's a plan. When it comes to this kind of stuff and bombs start flying, what do they say in the military, Josh? How long does a plan last? So there is no plan.
Until first contact with the enemy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there is no plan. They're shooting by the hip, and they haven't thought about any of the very thoughtful things that Frank just talked about. Just like when we invaded Iraq, they didn't even know there were three different kinds of Muslims. They had no idea. They don't know what they're doing.
I don't know. Hey, write your stuff up, guys.
I've written white papers before. I could do some more.
Hang tight, guys. Sorry, I'm just looking for our outro here. There it is. Okay. Got to share the screen. Oh. We're going to be wrapping up the live, and then folks can hang out with us on Zoom, and then we can work on those papers everyone's talking about. Okay, here we go.
I'm talking.
Sorry if we cut anyone off, but that's a wrap. Remember, you can catch us live Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern. It's your chance to join the conversation and have your voice heard. Just check the link in the description or visit americastalk.show. Together, through the free exchange of ideas, we can truly make America great again. Don't miss out. Tune in and be part of the dialogue.
Got it.